He's just looking at her like, wow, this woman is different.
He's looking for answers. He's looking to control his situation.
These are two people who are such givers, and they will give until they collapse.
He's curious about the world, and that's why he can be a good match for Allie.
The things she thought of for the kids, she was bringing that to him too.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm so excited today to be chatting with Gina Gold and Aurorae Khoo, who are the writers and co-executive producers this season on When Calls the Heart, and they wrote episode 3, which just aired. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So we've heard rave reviews about the episode that aired last night, and I want to cover all of it. It would be great if we could just talk for hours, but let's just start. First of all, fans want to always know a little bit about the writers. So what could the two of you tell us about your background in writing, and then how you ended up writing for When Calls the Heart?
Well, we actually came from two different worlds. I started out in comedy, and Aurorae started out in, well, she was a playwright first, and then she started in drama, and then we came together, and we tend to write things that are both dramas with elements of comedy, like When Calls the Heart.
And we actually were friends first for the longest time before we were a team. So, yeah, our team, as we were telling some other interviewers, that it's almost like a marriage. In fact, it's more intense than a marriage to be a writing team, because you're trying to build a house from the ground up every day, and you don't have a manual. They just throw all these pieces at you, and you have to collaborate, and you have to give and take. And how did we get to When Calls the Heart? Well, we love to write for ensembles. So we have a lot of experience for writing for big ensemble shows like Nurse Jackie or the courtroom drama All Rise, where you have to service a lot of characters. We also write on shows with strong female protagonists. So that brought us here. We've worked with Gina's mentor on Chesapeake Shores, if you want to talk a little.
Yeah. Beef Sutton, who took over the show in the last couple of years and kind of did a really fun revamp and put a lot of new life into it, which was great. And we were very excited that he brought us into the Hallmark family that way.
That's amazing.
That's probably how we came here, is through that sort of that experience on Chesapeake Shores.
So you've shared a little bit about some of those strengths that you bring from, your background. What do you think specifically, like, other than, ensemble, that character development, what were you most excited about using your strengths to help kind of move the story forward? When Calls the Heart has a rich history, there's a tone for it, there's things that just happen on When Calls the Heart. But what were you excited to bring to the season?
Do you want to talk about your love?
Yeah, I was going to let you start, and before I go down that alley.
You go first.
I'll go first. The ironic thing is that I grew up like a major, major Little House on the Prairie fan in terms of the books. When I was a little girl, I've read every single book, every single biography about Laurel Ingalls Wilder, every sort of fake spin-off book. And then I tried to write my own stories. And then I owned paper dolls of that period. And I know that period's before When Calls the Heart now, but the school teacher and all the other ladies in the community. And I used to draw the costumes and reenact these Little House type stories with my siblings. And so when Calls the Heart came up with this sort of school teacher, the frontier, Michael Landon Jr., Melissa Gilbert, I was just like, it's meant to be. This is what I've been working towards since I was 6 years old, maybe even younger. Because literally I just flipped my lid for things like this when I was growing up. This would have been my show. For sure, because I was so into school teachers in the frontier. I know everything about Little House on the Prairie. Not that this show is that, but it's sort of from that vein.
Absolutely love that. That's amazing. Yeah, definitely. It was meant to be that full circle moment. Did you find yourself as you were writing this episode and being in that writing team, like immediately going back to things that you remember from Little House on the Prairie?
Oh, absolutely. Like when she's in front of the classroom with the kids, and there's different types of kids and kids of different problems. And, whenever Nathan is with Elizabeth, I always think of Almanzo, which was, I literally go back and I'm like, when are we going to have Father Murphy show up, or something? Or like, I'm always, when we're at the Merc, I'm always thinking of the Olsons.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm like always thinking about the Olsons, and if there's a child who's sort of nasty or like a Rupert, I'm always thinking about Nellie. Or
That's
whenever
so
they bring
awesome.
up Angela, I'm like, Mary was blind too. I know all about the school for the blind, Mary and Adam, and I could go through the list.
I love it. I
And
love it.
oddly, I grew up in, the heart of New York City, so that kind of show was not on my radar, growing up, but I was a reporter and I ended up a reporter in rural Massachusetts in a very small town like Rosemary. And I mean, I just remember on my one of my first days, I actually had to go cover a fire, and I'm going up, I didn't know where I was because I was still new to the area. And I stop at this Christmas tree farm and I'm like, did you hear about like a fire somewhere around there? And he goes, yeah, I think it was up the road and to the left and down, a couple of miles. Nobody gives real directions in New England. But and then I'm starting to go and he goes, and are you Gina? And I'm like, what? Why? I'm in the middle of nowhere. Why does this
Yeah.
no? He goes, oh, I heard they got a new reporter at the newspaper.
Where everybody knows everybody, right?
Everybody knows everybody. So I got very used to that. And it really is, I mean, the thing I loved is just how close everybody gets. And when I got sick, everybody from my job would send me chicken soup and it
Mm,
just took care of me. It was great.
yeah. So you mentioned Nathan, Elizabeth. Let's start out talking about episode 3, if you guys are ready to dig in.
Sure.
One of our opening scenes, we've got Nathan that is doing this check-in with Elizabeth. She admits in the schoolhouse that she's, a little bit out of sorts. She's a little bit off balance. We love that little check-in moment. Just watching their relationship, there's so many different layers to it. And then later on, we see where Elizabeth goes to the Mountie office and she checks in on him as he's going through the investigation. So I'm curious, how intentional was it to give them these quieter, mutual check in moments in this episode?
It really is something we try to do in every episode is to have them connect and, to even in the midst of the frenzy of the investigation. I mean, it was particularly important here because they're both going through so much and have so much pressure on them, and they're helping the kids, they're helping the community, and these are two people who are such givers, and they will give until they collapse. So they just want to make sure, they want to take care of each other during this very hard time.
And the show is always about Elizabeth and her relationship, and any obstacle that comes up informs that relationship because the relationship even comes first before the fire. And how they deal with it as individuals and as a couple and how they grow and change because of it is the most important thing. The fire is but a canvas for Elizabeth to grow and the relationship to change.
I love that. I love how, chatting with Joy, how she said that fire and having that was going to be like that spine that carries through, but the things that are coming out of it, it's just been so amazing to watch
Mhm.
how that has moved these stories and these characters along in this journey. It's been pretty amazing to watch, even just the first 3 episodes. So, another Nathan and Elizabeth moment at the end. We've got this beautiful scene where they're walking through the field and they take a breath. We know that Elise Late Rogers directed this episode. She also directed the very similar scene with the sunset, that golden hour last season. I'm curious to get your reaction about how that scene, the way you wrote it, how it ended up translating when you saw it on the screen, and did it do everything you hoped it would do?
Well, first of all, Elise is just a brilliant director and just has an incredible eye. She just sees these beautiful Hallmark images that are just
Exactly it.
wonderful. And again, we want those check-in moments, but we also want a really romantic moment. And trying to find the right place for it is always a bit of a challenge because you've got very heavy things going on, and you want it to be realistic, that we're not just shoehorning it in there. And we just like that she brought a little bit of playfulness to it. The things she thought of for the kids, she was bringing that to him too. And the fact that it was golden hour and the sun is shining. And I was saying this during another interview, that I just thought, the little things that she did. There's the scene where Rosemary's looking out the window at Lee and Gwen, and you really might not notice it, but if you get a chance to look at it again, there's this beautiful reflection of the laundry, the sheets flapping in the wind, and it just, even if you don't know it, it subconsciously registers about the peacefulness of Hope Valley and how beautiful it is.
So good. So let's dig in then. We've got Rosemary and Lee. Speaking of Rosemary, this to me, this episode, first of all, we love Rosemary and Lee, but this episode really showcased who they are as a couple. So there's also kind of this check in with them as well. At the beginning, Rosemary's a bit, she's trying to make sure that Gwen is prepared to go to school. And Lee says, you can't change everything that fast. And then, of course, we have the jail scene. And that was actually something that Pascal and Pascal and Kevin highlighted as one of their favorite scenes of the entire season. And they've said that multiple times. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about their storyline in this episode and what you love about them as a couple.
Do you want to start, Ori, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
What in this episode, it's sort of the aftermath of them losing everything they've worked for years, right? The park named after Goldie is lost. The playhouse is lost. And it's how do you recover from this? And Lee is sort of really down and he's looking for answers. He's looking to control his situation. And so he's just determined to find out, who is responsible for this fire. And sort of Rosemary sort of has to put her sadness and fears aside because she's tasked with taking care of Gwen. There's someone that is in even more need and more trauma than herself. So in a way, Gwen coming into her life is a good thing because she can be nurturing, she can be motherly to this girl, even though there's friction with this girl. But she has somewhere to put her energy. But Lee, however, is putting his energy into solving this mystery and this sort of almost need for, justice. He wouldn't say revenge, but maybe there's a tinge of that also. And so Rosemary in this episode is sort of a grounding, modulating force for him that sort of says, we've suffered these losses, but we still have each other. We're still safe. Goldie is still safe. We still have our town. We're so much more fortunate than the people of Benson Hills. And so, in that moment where they're in the jail together, we wanted more subtext. We wanted this sense of all this flurrying around, all this pressure, all this, bumping into McGinty, all this anxiety. And now we get a moment to decompress, a moment of rest, because couples have their own language and they don't have to over explain to each other. They almost speak in code, and less is more. And we knew these actors work really well together. We've actually got to meet the two actors in person, which really helped. So we got a sense of their physicality and their personalities and how much they care about the characters and how well they get along with each other in real life.
Yeah.
And we wanted to give them space to shine, to put in their own delivery, their own emotions, because we don't need any more exposition or explaining. The audience has seen it, why Lee is in jail. We don't need, as we told other interviewers, Rosemary finger wagging at her husband because he doesn't need another lecture, and that's not what builds their relationship. Her lecturing him. Gina, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, but also just her putting it in perspective, yes, they had a tremendous loss, but they still have their home,
Yeah.
and as Joy probably told you that, we were going through the actual fires,
Yeah.
the aftermath of the fires when we started working on this season. So we all have friends and family who had terrible losses. And I know a woman who she had a store in Pacific Palisades that, her business that she poured her life into and it got burnt to the ground. But she said, but I still have my home. You know,
Hmm.
she understood that. And the other thing about this scene that I love so much about what they brought to it is that even some moments that were written kind of comedically, uh, they found a way to both have that humor, but it was also so warm and so there were just so many levels going on of, I'm disappointed in you for doing this, but I love you and I understand. And it was a beautiful moment between the two of them.
Lee says, "You're going to say blah, blah, blah." And she goes, "You're right. I am, you know." And it's
Mhm.
just that little bit of, you know me so well, and, that check in. But oh my goodness, it was such a powerful moment. And then to follow it up with, like you said, when Rosemary is looking out the window, like she just knows in that moment, like Lee's out there having his space, but I'm going to send Gwen out there. Oh my, can you talk a little bit about that moment? Because it was just like in this moment, these two should be together. They should have this time.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was just such a selfless thing because, Rosemary wants to fix everything and do everything, and she recognized where their relationship was working and that they both needed each other, and she was able to step aside from trying to be the winner in this scenario and sending Gwen out there to be with Lee, and that would be healing for the two of them.
And also, we've mentioned this before to other people, but when I think of Gwen, she's very much like my daughter in terms of this like tough, rough and tumble, strong exterior. And I'm more like Rosemary in trying to deal with her, trying to ask her to talk about her feelings. How are you feeling today? What can I get for you? And fussing around. And Gwen doesn't respond to that. She needs someone like Lee
Mhm.
who just for the physical action of silence and being together, again, more silence, more subtext. That is where comfort is. That's where security comes from. And we wanted to show that Rosemary is smart enough and big enough to know that Gwen doesn't need her type of comfort. She needs Lee's brand of comfort, and that's why she sends him out there and is so pleased that Gwen helps Lee and Lee helps Gwen, and they're exactly what each other needs in that moment.
So good. Absolutely. It's exciting. I'm excited to see where that storyline goes with the three of them and even Goldie, and just that dynamic between Gwen and Goldie has been
Mhm.
fun to watch, and excited to see where that goes. So, another one of our favorite couples or couples to be is Allie and Oliver. I don't know that anybody knew that they were going to be such a popular pairing when they brought Oliver on last year. Oliver realizes that he and Allie may not be at that same level academically as she's talking about Shakespeare and Julius Caesar, but instead of backing away, he actually leans in. We see him in the library. He has that conversation with Elizabeth. So, why was it important for Oliver to rise to that challenge rather than retreat?
We wanted to show that he's capable of growth and learning. He isn't someone who's stuck in his ways, but he's curious about the world. And that's why he can be a good match for Allie because she's curious about the world also. And we also wanted to give moments for Elizabeth to sort of mentor him because that's another way she can affect a young person in the town is by teaching him poetry and talking about it and saying that Allie's world isn't inaccessible. You've just got to find your own unique entry into it. And we thought that was very important to build Oliver as a future Mountie too, because he's Mounties have to be able to interact with all different sorts of people and identify and connect. They're not just sort of going out there and enforcing the law or the rules. Gina, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the one thing I love is, especially in these first three episodes, is we're moving through that awkwardness of the two of them coming out of these kind of very deep letters over the summer. And then they're like face to face with each other in episode one. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't the same thing. And they're kind of fumfering around, but then he's this very brave presence, during the fire. And it was really funny when I was watching the dailies as we were going along, because say, oh, he's a really cute kid, and he's this it's a sweet relationship. But there was one moment, and I'm not even sure it ended up on the screen yet, but I was like, oh, this boy's got some game. Like he was like really like handsome and strong, and I'm like, oh, I see where this is going.
Uh-huh.
He's he's cute.
It's been really fun to watch Jacob in that role because he has shared that his personality is very similar to Oliver, but yet there's just still he pulls off the cool even if he is a little bit shy. So it's really fun to watch, especially with him paired with Jada as Allie and their dynamics. So speaking of other couples, we've got Edie and Lucas, who we've really enjoyed watching them since last season and that challenge that Edie brings to Lucas. So clearly they work together professionally, but then Edwin shows up again in this episode and kind of throws things off again by putting that pressure on Lucas to show up for the Chamberwell dinner, directly conflicting with his commitment to Benson Hills. So, where is Lucas's headspace and heart at this moment? And how does this decision reflect that larger push and pull that he's facing this season?
Well, I mean, he really is between a rock and a hard place. I mean, he is the governor and he is running for office and he does have duties, but he is
And
finding,
fundraising.
yeah, but he's starting to really see his own frustration
Mhm.
with being a public servant versus being able to just help people without, all of the stuff that comes along with it. And Edie really helps him highlight that and start to check in with himself. And but she's also just such a good partner for him during all of this too. He's seeing her in action, and we have that scene with the two of them where he's on the phone and she's scribbling notes for him, and they're
Mhm.
talking about, it's just we're seeing what a great team they are. And we actually, it had a lot of kind of talking in that scene, and we were trying to find a way to make it a little livelier. And we thought, well, what would this woman do to stay awake? She'd do calisthenics, and he's just looking at her like, wow, that this woman is different. She's kind of
Mhm.
wonderful. And so we were able to use that moment to, have a lot of exposition, but also to deepen their relationship a little bit.
And I think at this moment, especially, he's feeling torn. He's
Yeah.
feeling torn between his sort of his political life and survival versus wanting to be with Edie and her cause fully. So he's, as Gina said, a rock and a hard place. That's where he is right now. And more will be revealed as we go through the season.
And he really was trying, he's trying to do the right thing, but it's very hard to do both. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see, which direction that he goes. I mean, we have our guesses, but the way that we get there, so that'll be fun to watch. One of my favorite storylines this season has been watching the dynamic between Mike and May and Maisie. And there was a moment in this episode that I personally think is one of Amanda Wong's best moments since she's been on When Calls the Heart, when she breaks through to Maisie sitting at the table and brings the picture back of Mikey. So, can you talk a little bit about writing for the three of them, what you've enjoyed and what you like about that dynamic? Because it's new for us having the three of them together.
Well, they're all such really good actors. So we know we could all go all the way in their scenes and make them almost like little plays, little playlets where the conflict and power shifts between them. And we like that Maisie is the big sister. She's overbearing, and Mike is doesn't it has to walk on eggshells around her. And throughout the season, we're going to see Mike and Maisie's relationship change. And Maisie is used to being tough and invincible, but May is able to bring out vulnerability from her in that scene. And I think what we really enjoyed about writing for May is that this search for connection and a family, because she has that brother who's we've seen in the show before, but she married into Mike's family, and there's all these sisters, and she wants to be part of that. She wants to have a family too. So she wants Maisie to connect with her as if they were blood. And so she tries to get through to Maisie and say, it's okay to be shaken up. It's okay not just to think of your townsfolk. It's okay to show what you miss also. And yeah, we just really liked writing that subtle moment of connection between the two of them, where they both desperately want a sister almost.
Yeah.
And also, it just shows her character because I think most of us, if we were confronted with a Maisie, we might be like, well, the hell with it. Okay, I'm trying to be
Get
nice,
out
and
of here.
you walk away. But she, really sees underneath it, and as Roy was saying, her own need for connection because she doesn't really have her own, immediate family around her. So it's a driving force in that also.
I had not even thought of that, but knowing May's history, it all makes sense. Like it's so amazing that you guys tapped back into that, what we know about May. So gosh, that just makes it even more rich to watch and see where this is going. So, but we're loving the dynamic of the three of them.
Oh,
I'm
great.
curious, do you have a scene or a moment that was really meaningful to you after you saw it translated on screen?
For me, it's the May and Maisie scene where they connect in the saloon. In terms of we were, as Gina said, we had all these friends who were living in the aftermath of the fire and picking through things
Yeah.
and seeing on our private social media feeds friends posting pictures of like, oh, here's the twisted picture frame I rescued. Oh, I, managed to rescue this childhood trophy, or there's my wedding ring.
Yeah.
Or it was like someone in real life in California, like nothing survived on their property but their goats. And so we have that line, these goats survived.
Yes.
And
And
so,
also, people who gave each other musical instruments because their kids' instruments, burned up in the fire. You
Wow.
can't take a piano with you, or
Yeah.
there was a lot of that. There was, I think, an organization that specifically did that, which
Yeah.
I thought was so moving.
but it's that moment of connection uh, where Maisie's just, and even the hardest soul would be brought to their knees by this moment.
Yeah.
And then again, knowing May's backstory, which I think was really important to us, to ground May. She's a very comic character and she's very fun and light, but we wanted to show the side of her of what her wound and need is, which is to have a family, which is to have a home, which is to have a place. Like finally, Mike and her have her own home. She wants this sister. So that was my most memorable scene.
And me, I mean, the jail cell definitely, but there's a scene right before that, or a few scenes before that, where he goes in to talk to Bill and Nathan, and he's like, you got to go get McGinty. I mean, he's guilty, and they're like two law enforcement guys, and they're not going to run out for him. But he gets so frustrated and so angry, and he's like, I'm telling you, I'm right, and we just get to start seeing that new color in him that he just did so beautifully.
That's so funny, Gina. That is the reel that I posted today on Instagram. So it's been fun to watch what Kevin has brought to Lee's arc this season. And it's just been, and in that moment to know he's just that passionate, like you guys said, about the justice side of it and what they lost. So that was a powerful moment, I know, for fans as well. So something that I'm wondering, because in that moment, when Nathan and Bill are talking about what Nathan is doing, what Bill are doing to solve this, how did this happen? And the investigation again, it's, kind of what's carrying us through. But Nathan makes a comment that he has charted the burn pattern to determine whether the fire was arson. And a lot of people missed it. Is that something that will resurface later in the season?
We can't tell you, classified.
And
The fire is this mystery that twists and turns throughout the season, right? It's a real pleasure for us to be a part of because we've been on a lot of detective and procedural shows,
Yeah.
and our colleagues all have too,
Yeah.
Julie and David. So plotting this mystery is super cool, and every clue matters. We'll just say that. Every clue.
Rosemary says it. She goes, sometimes no one's to blame in a fire,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But you want to, I mean, that's been going on in LA for sure.
Absolutely.
And everybody's
Who do
going
you
from person
blame?
to
Yeah,
person to person trying to blame someone.
you
And,
got it. All
you know,
right. Yeah. So to wrap, Toby and Cooper's confession scene with Elizabeth is handled so gently. Elizabeth being that beautiful teacher that she is, who knows, like the fact that Cooper and Toby know they can go to her and they can trust her. So, what can you tease about what's coming up for the boys as the season continues?
We're not allowed. I think that's
well,
classified. I don't know.
I think what we can say is that it what has happened weighs heavily on them, and they're not even sure what
Yeah.
they're just
Yes.
trying to tell the truth. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And and Elizabeth's talking about community before that, and that honesty is really what creates community, is what makes them go, maybe we should talk about this.
Got
So,
it.
you know, there,
Is there a particular character or story this season that you really latched onto that you really enjoyed writing?
Probably Gwen and
yeah.
Lee. They're a very cool combination. How about you, Gina?
Um, yeah, I'd say that's been my favorite so far. There are others that are coming up that I don't want to spoil that I also enjoyed, but I think, you'll see them as they come.
Gwen and Lee so far. It's amazing. Kevin was talking the other day and just singing her praises. And then Pascal at a Christmas experience in Kansas City said, there is this girl. And so it has been amazing to watch her, join the group this year and what she's brought so far just in the first 3 episodes to the season. I'm really excited to see where that storyline goes and that dynamic between the three of them. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she really brings out wonderful things in their relationship, in Lee and Rosemary's relationship, that we think just adds a lovely dimension to the season.
Got it. Did you guys write another episode this season?
Yep,
Yeah,
another one coming up.
7.
Okay. Well, we're excited to see what that how that goes. And thank you so much for chatting with me, taking the time. Loved episode 3. Excited to
Thanks so
see
much.
what's ahead in episode 4. We know we've got a birthday party coming up that excited to see what's going to happen with that. And then, of course, all of the other wonderful moments that are going on. It's been so great to meet you. We're so excited that you are part of the When Calls the Heart family, and looking forward to maybe we'll get to chat again after your next moment that you wrote, the next episode that you guys wrote.
We're just so happy, to have such a devoted fan base who are, you sort of work in, behind your laptop, and it's like, oh, people really are out there.
They like it. They
like
like
us.
it, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for
Did you
having
have
us.
any idea how crazy we were?
We didn't before we came on the show, and then we certainly heard about it, and now we
But
know.
we've had experience with the Chessies on
Yes,
Chesapeake
we
Oh,
Bay.
did.
you got a
Yeah,
little bit then,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
This even
This
takes it
is
to another
next
level.
level. This is
Yeah.
next level. In a good way. Hey, we're on 13 seasons,
I
right? So
know.
Yeah,
something
exactly.
is
Something is
working
going
right.
right.
That is
Yeah.
right. And it was so great, Aurora, to hear your story about, your background with Little House on the Prairie and how that's translated, and Gina, even with your fun moments there in Massachusetts. So always great to hear those behind the scenes stories. It's what fans love to hear. So thank you so much for the chat, and hopefully we'll catch you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. So nice meeting you. Bye-bye.